Good day. This is Deborah Wright with my final screencast for ATM F101X Unit 15. I will be discussing the weather and climate of two Alaskan sites, Anchorage and Kodiak, during the months of January, February, and March. I will be talking about particular dates during those months and the climate and weather trends. Anchorage is located at 61.22 degrees north, 149.85 degrees west in the Cook Inlet area of Alaska. And Kodiak is located at 57.80 degrees north, 152.39 degrees west in the south central area of Alaska. Most of the maps and data that I'm using in this forecast have been provided by the National Weather Service and through our instructor, Professor Richard Collins. The daylight, the sunrise and sunset information I got from Weather Underground as well. On January 28th in Anchorage, the sun rose at 9:29 a.m. It's set at 4:56 p.m. with total visible daylight of 9 hours, 9 minutes. And on February 1st, the sun rose at 9:19 a.m. and set at 5:07 p.m., giving them 9 hours, 27 minutes of visible daylight, having gained they gained 18 minutes of sunlight between those 2 days. Sorry, between those 4 days. As you can see from this form here, the mean temperature for Anchorage during that time of year, the climate normal is between is around 15 to 17 degrees above zero. The highs are usually around 23, and the lows, the average lows, are around 11 to 12 degrees above zero. But as you can see on the 28th, Anchorage had higher than normal temperatures on that particular day. We'll be looking at the barometric pressure on the next page to explain this. And then as you see by the first, the temperatures drop back down to within average normal temperatures with highs of around 24, 25 and lows of around 11 or 12 during that time period. As you can see on this next screen, that warm period could be explained by a drop in the barometric pressure reaching as low as 100 or almost 1005 millibars prior to the warmer temperatures recorded on the 28th. And then the barometric pressure steadily rises over the course of the week, which looks like it should bring Anchorage back to normal temperatures as we saw in the last piece of data. Now, as you can see from this data, this corresponds with the drop or the warmer temperatures, but the drop in barometric pressure. We also had lower relative humidity at about 60%, but we had a higher dew point at about, let me see, at about 35 at that point. And then as we see the dew point dropping during the course of the week, that is also when our temperatures had dropped by the first. So that was pretty consistent right there. In looking at our weather map for January 28th, we do see a low pressure system with counterclockwise winds, and the winds are westerly, southwesterly for a good part. And then they're westerly with a warm front coming in, and this could also explain the rise in temperature, the unusual warm temperatures for Anchorage recorded that day, as well as this low pressure system that we have right here. It should also be noted that the closer lines indicate more winds in this area. Now, when we look at February 1st, when those temperatures had dropped, the barometric pressure had risen, and we see a low pressure system here with even fewer winds, but we have a high pressure system to the east, another one to the west, and we have snow that's developed in the Aleutian chain over here, and so that would be indicative of lower temperatures for the Anchorage area. There's also less cloud cover, less clouds retaining heat in our atmosphere. When we look at our map and satellite images for February 1st in that area, it should be noted that these show a lower dew point. That would explain the drop in the normal temperatures for Anchorage for that time period. Now, when we look back on Unit 10 for the temperatures in Anchorage, we do see that the temperatures are pretty consistent with the usual climate temperatures, the data for that time period of the year. They stay within slightly above and slightly below the highs and lows, and right along with the mean temperatures here, hovering around 30 degrees for the week. On the 23rd, the sun rose at 7:50 a.m. It set at 8:22 p.m., giving Anchorage total visible daylight, or total visible light hours of 13 hours 59 minutes. On the 27th, it rose at 7:37 in the morning, set at 8:33 at night, giving them 14 hours 23 minutes of daylight, visible light, a gain of 24 minutes for them. When we look at the beginning of the week that we're observing, we notice that the barometric pressure is rather high. It's above 1,030 millibars, and then it drops down to almost 1,005 millibars for the second day that we're looking at during our observation week for Anchorage. We will explain more about that when we take a look at our maps. Regarding humidity during the last week of March in Anchorage, we could see that, that the dew point and the relative humidity stay rather consistent with each other during that week. They seem to correspond nicely with the average temperatures that we saw for Anchorage for the final week of March. The warmer temperatures could also be explained by less clouds. We'll be looking at that with more sunlight radiating Earth and raising the temperatures in that way as well too, but we'll be looking at that in another minute. But first, I would like to take a moment and look at the weather recordings, the data that we received for the final week of March in Kodiak. As you can see, on the 23rd, Kodiak had higher than normal temperatures. They hovered around the average high temperatures for the first few days of this week, and then dropped back down to within the regular highs and lows that they see in Kodiak for the final week of March. On the 23rd, the sun rose in Kodiak at 8:02 a.m. It set at 8:31 p.m., giving them 13 hours 46 minutes of visible sunlight. And then on the 27th, the sun rose at 7:51 a.m. It set at 8:40 p.m., giving them 14 hours 7 minutes of daylight, of visible sunlight, and that is a gain of 21 minutes for them as well. Kodiak also started out the week with higher barometric pressure, hovering at around 1,027 millibars, and then that also dropped by the second date that we're paying attention to in this particular week. That's the 27th of March. And then it kind of went up and down a little bit during the week. We'll take a look at the weather map and see what kind of an effect that had. But first, we'll take a look at the humidity recorded during the week of March 23rd through the 31st in Kodiak. And as we can see, the relative humidity and the dew point were relatively close during that time period, which also would explain the consistent temperatures that they saw, the normal averages that they see for that time of year down in Kodiak. When we look at our weather map for Anchorage and Kodiak, this is Anchorage, this is Kodiak, we see that Anchorage is affected by a high pressure system, not that much winds as well. Kodiak seems to be affected by a low pressure system, which is driving winds up, slightly windier. Winds coming, they're southerly, and there are a couple of warm fronts coming up towards Kodiak and Anchorage. When we look at our satellite images and maps for Anchorage and Kodiak for March 23rd, we do see that it seems as though it's relatively clear above Anchorage, maybe a little bit cloudy over Kodiak. That would seem normal for this time of year. And then when we look at the next map, that is for March 27th, we see that there is a high pressure system. Winds aren't too strong. Some relatively clear skies above both Kodiak and Anchorage, although it does look like there's some precipitation to the south of Kodiak for that day. And then when we look at the weather map and the satellite maps for Anchorage and Kodiak during that final week of March, in particular March 27th, we do see where that high pressure system, it's moving in a clockwise rotation, is pushing some of the winds away and clearing up some of the area around Anchorage, and we see a small amount of water vapor visible in the infrared satellite image that would explain some of the rain to the south of Anchorage and Kodiak for that time period. And there you have it. That's my final screencast for Unit 15. I thank you for watching, and have a good end of the semester. Good luck on your finals.